What's up, Dope Stories? Today we have Mike Z. I met Mike at rehab that I've talked about incessantly in Pennsylvania 7 years ago. And
Wow.
we've kept in contact. And like, I was a mess when I showed up, a real mess, as you've heard in part 5. And Mike kind of spotted me and like, he understood the psychedelic kind of thing I was going through, I'm pretty sure, from his own sort of fish shows experiences, but he sort of realized that I needed some help. And he kind of like we kind of had each other's back, and we've been friends since, and I love him. And here's Mike, and he's going to tell us his dope story.
How you doing, everyone? Nice to see you, Jerry. Always, man. Always interesting. So I met Jerry back in 2013. I was coming off of I can't really say relapse because I had never put together a substantial amount of time on my own. I stayed clean sober with stints of jail time, and which my story will lead up to that. But I ended up meeting Jerry. It was my 13th rehab, and I was like a month or two in when you came in, and I remember this odd guy, man, was just like by himself playing the guitar a lot. And I was like, this dude is tripped out, man. He is really coming off. He's really he's out there, man. But I just took a liking and an interest, and I knew I needed to get his back, and we ended up spending some time. And if you spend any length of time with Jerry, you will find that he's a very interesting, smart character, and he's got a lot of wisdom and a lot of things to say. He's got a lot of insightful opinions. So with that being said, that's how I ended up meeting Jerry, and like you said, we ended up staying in contact for since then. So I guess where do you want me to start off, Jerry?
So what I want to kind of do with everyone is to hit the key points where the sort of disconnected, how the initial, whatever the drug of choice is, drinking or whatever, how that helped people feel normal, and then
right,
and that it's
okay.
like it always starts good, and then the bottom, and then the recovery, and then the click where like life comes back.
Yeah, for sure. All right, so I grew up in Philadelphia, in Northeast Philadelphia, and it's like a row home. It's a blue collar, I should say, middle class. Back in the I was born in '77, so in the '80s it was middle class, and I played a lot of sports. Played soccer. I was very into soccer. Soccer's big. So that's really where I gained my acceptance, and in Philly, like, you kind of grow up with the kids on the block, and you grow up with them. So like the kids in the block that I grew up with, we did everything together, and my family has a business. It was relatively small back in the '80s. It's a grocery chain. So my father started getting ahead, and we ended up moving to Cherry Hill, New Jersey. And so it was like a culture shock to me, right? So like the kids in Philadelphia were a lot different than the kids in Cherry Hill, New Jersey. Okay. And so I actually I kind of gravitated towards kids that, actually it's kind of funny because the kids who I met in middle school and high school are the kids who I kind of still talk to, and we're in a thread together, and we still get together, which is amazing. But and two of those kids in that group of friends have passed away. Actually three of them, two from a heroin overdose and one from a cocaine overdose. But so I kind of had like a disconnect early on. I was never really good at school. I was diagnosed with ADHD. I was in like so when I moved from Philadelphia to Cherry Hill, I was put into like this what you call like an M-track class, right, for people that really didn't excel in academics. So right off the bat, when I moved, not only did I not have the friends I grew up with, I was put into this class, so it kind of like made me feel different, made me feel like not good enough. And I come from this pretty successful family, right? So, but nonetheless, I had my first drink when I was 13 years old, and right off the bat, man, like drinking was my thing. It was my thing. Like by middle school, I was the kid that was throwing up all the time, and I was like, I always took things to the next level. By like my senior year of high school, my friends, we would be tripping in school off of shrooms. We tried hallucinogenics. We did everything. I was like doing I was drinking 30, 40 beers a night on the weekends, right? It became like a weekend thing. And then towards senior year, it was like almost 4, 5, 6, 7 nights a week for me and my friends. We had nitrous tanks, so and what actually gave me an outlet was like getting girls and drinking. Like that was a way for me to get out of myself. If I had a good looking girl and if I had booze, I'm good, And then there came a time where like where everyone was going to college. And like that was the last thing I really had been thinking about the past 4 years in high school. And everyone was like going away and getting accepted to these colleges, and I didn't get accepted to not one. So it really wasn't, and it wasn't something that my family pushed me to do because they didn't go to college. My dad grew up in the business and he was very successful, so he expected me to do the same thing, and the times had changed, and like I felt inadequate, right? My dad was never like, you should go to college. He was like, go right into the business. And at this time in like the mid 90s, like my family's business was getting big and I didn't know where I fit in.
Were you feeling like, because I have a similar kind of story there, but the further you go out with the drinking or whatever your drug of choice, whatever, you just felt so far from being able to do that. Like if you hadn't been drinking and stuff, you could have seen yourself doing that.
Yeah.
Did you feel so far out of it?
Yeah, and just my relationship with my family grew worse and worse. My dad actually, my sophomore year, we were having I was so disconnected. I was getting in fights with my father, and he did the best he could, but he actually sent me to Friends Hospital, which was a psychiatric hospital when I was a sophomore, and so I was spent a week there, and this was like right at, you have like your freshman dance, your sophomore cotillion, right? So like I bought my suit for my sophomore cotillion, and he had taken me right before that. So everyone was like, where's Mike? So I held a lot of resentment for a long time about that. It like made me feel weird. But by the end of the week, they were like, there's nothing wrong with this kid, right? So like there was already kind of like this rebellious attitude against authority, against my dad. And the more less than I felt, the more I drank and just progressed, And so when I eventually got kicked out of my family's house, and they sent me to live with my grandfather. And so that's how I ended up, instead of going away to college, I actually went out to Oregon. I went to Bend, Oregon. I didn't know what else to do because I didn't know how to get involved with my family's business. Even though I did start working at an early age, I started pushing carts, and I would always work there and doing like odd, work in the grocery department and deli department. But I just didn't know where I was fitting in. I knew for my own self, I wanted to go to college, but I didn't really know how to go about doing that. But so when I went to Bend, Oregon, I worked in a ski mountain, Mount Bachelor, learned how to snowboard, and worked out there. I worked for the lift, and at some point, maybe like 8-10 months later, I was like, I'm gonna go back home and like try to do school serious, right? All my friends were away, and I went to community college, and lo and behold, I was able to do it and eventually get into St. Joe's University, which is one of 3 schools in America that have food marketing as a degree, which is Cornell University, Michigan State, and St. Joe's. And I did relatively well. I stayed at home and I commuted, and things were going well. And then my senior year, I came home from school one day. I was at class all day. My mother had asked me if I'd seen my sister. My sister was going to Rowan University at the time. She was 21. I was 24. And just long story short, I ended up finding her hanging in her bedroom from the ceiling fan. Now, I was supposed to graduate in December of '02, and she passed away August 1st of '02. So that kind of like just gave me, that was the first real, uh, someone that was, I never had anyone close to me really die before, especially like that, right? Like, so, and so from there, like, my alcohol and my cocaine usage really took off, and that's how I ended up going to New York. So I had some friends who were doing very well in the modeling career and living up in New York, and some friends that had graduated college by now were living up there, and they told me to go up there, and I went up there, and I got an agent, what have you, and was going on all these auditions, and they had already established themselves within that community. So, you know, uh, cocaine and booze was readily accessible, and I would go into VIP rooms and hung out with several different people, and um, I eventually I did a Nike commercial, and I eventually got signed to do episodes of One Life to Live. But that was short-lived because at that time, by the time that happened, was um, I was going out 7 nights a week and doing tons and tons of cocaine, and to the point where I was up for like 4 days with this. I don't know if she was like she was Spanish. She was from somewhere, man. But I spent like 4 days in her loft that she was able to stay there for some millionaire that she was living with that never came home. So I was just like, we sat there like naked for like 4 days. And this girl was also living there, and I would see her come and go. And like, I was like, finally, I was like, what day is it? Because I remember I went out there, I went home with her on a Wednesday and I actually left on a Sunday or Monday.
Were you supposed to be like on the set?
Yeah. So that's another thing is like, by the time I left, so like you shoot, I was shooting at NBC Studios on 5th, and my phone died. I'm there, and I'm supposed to be shooting like these episodes, right? Like, and
So, Mike, what was your character on this soap
so
opera?
Brett was a character, and we were going to college, and the girl's her character was pregnant at the time, and I was more or less like a villain, right? Like I was coming in between them, and so I was signed on for like 16 episodes, I believe. I don't know how many it was, but nonetheless, I missed several days of shooting, and by the time I got my cell phone on, and by the time I got the messages from my manager, it was basically, you're done. So at that point, I was kind of feeling as though I was headed down the path of like where I was going to overdose, or I was like thinking about suicide, So, but during that time, like I said, I was going out, and during that time there was a club named Suede. And so downstairs was a VIP room, and then like behind the bar there was a door where there was another VIP room, like couch and like other things like that. And there was a girlfriend of later on of 98 Degrees who I slept with. Maybe if you could read between the lines, I think he may be still with her now. She was on MTV at the time. So, I had experiences like that, and it was all fun and games, but, it started really, the cocaine and the booze was really starting to make me feel as though my life was getting out of control, and I couldn't hold a job. It was quite obvious. Like, I was just like, after that incident, I was like, it's time for me to kind of go home, and I started going home, and started going back to Philadelphia. And my life has always been kind of like on the whim, like I also I suffer from bipolar, and I I really had never taken medication for it. Knowing what I know today, that's what was wrong with me, along with suffering from PTSD from finding my sister hanging.
Hey, yo, can we put the phone like so it's not bouncing around?
Yeah. So.
Yep. Sideways. Yeah. All right, there you go.
Yeah. Okay, so where am I? So now I'm like at this point, like I'm like New York is like I gotta get out. I gotta get out of New York and what's up?
Hi.
Hey, Ariel.
That's Luna and that's Ariel, my girlfriend.
Hi, guys.
That's the dog,
she's
though.
Golden Retriever.
It's beautiful.
And Ariel's a recovering addict herself with 3.5 years clean.
I'm an interviewer.
Tomorrow.
All right. See ya.
Later.
Nice.
So, all right. So, you know what? But that's like not even like my addiction and the hell that I went through really didn't start until I had eye surgery when I was 28 with an abscess on my eye, and they prescribed me Percocets. And when I had those, that was it, man. Everything I had known, everything I witnessed, every negative thing about myself was all gone. And that progressed into the point where, like, that went from 5 milligrams to 10 to finding out about the 30s. And so from that point on, so from 28 to 35, I wouldn't wish it upon no one, but, like, it had taken me on a roller coaster where by the time all the rehabs I had gone to up until the time I met you, every single thing that people warned me about this is going to happen to you, happened to me. Okay, so from and I used 30s successfully for like 5 years, where I was doctor shopping. I ended up getting $240 a month. Towards the end of my oxycodone addiction, before I stepped into the realm of heroin, I was sniffing 240 in a week and a half. So if you can imagine how many milligrams that was.
240 milligrams in a week and a half?
No, 240 30s. So 30 milligrams.
Oh, shit. Yeah. Okay.
So
I was kind of there, but not quite. But yeah.
Yeah. So I eventually found heroin and found Kensington Avenue.
Was it like with me that you like? I'll never do heroin. I'll never do that. And then you do God, so many. You do so much oxy, and then one day you're like, "It's a great idea."
I mean, it's funny because like everyone warned me, and I said, "Never me."
Right.
So, like, I was, it was to the point where I was stealing everything. You know, like I would walk into my parents' house and walk out with a flat screen TV when they weren't home, and then they would call me up. But they were expecting me to go there, and I walk in and I said, you know what? Fuck, I'm not even going to say hello to them. I'm just going to take the TV off, walk back to the car, and I called them the next day, and they're like, Mike, where is our TV? I'm like, I have no idea. Right? Like things like that. Like I stole all my sister's jewelry. My big thing was stealing checks from my family and forging them. I must have taken, and this is unfortunately, it's not a lie, I probably stole $350,000 from my family by forging checks. And my mother hid that from my father. And I always said, like, I would walk over my mom and piss in her face to get my next. And towards the end of my addiction, I kind of did do that in a way, and I'll get to that. It wasn't like literally, but in a roundabout way, I ended up doing that. And so I ended up, someone died in my car. I was driving without a license. I was on Kensington Avenue on Cambria Street. Me and a guy that I went to rehab with met some kid that just got out of rehab. We picked up some really good dope. He wanted to do a 3-bag shot. We told him not to do it because it was really good dope. lo and behold, he's in my back seat and he does it. And I look behind, I start like hitting him, and he wasn't waking. And I was like, dude, and I'm sorry, I'm gonna say Harry. He actually has 15 months. I just heard. He just texted me not long ago, which is incredible. But I was like, Harry, we got to fucking get rid of him. So I pulled off a side street and we drug his body out and just put him down right on the corner, right on the side of the street, and drove away. Whether that kid lived or died, I have no idea. So like that's the type of shit that like I was doing and like where my life was at. And like I really never saw my life living. It wasn't worth living without a needle in the bag. Like that's how deep my heroin addiction was. And so what ended up happening was, from getting arrested for robbing houses and from getting caught down the way, I eventually I was at my probation office on Arch Street, and I got booked. My son and at this time I have a 2.5-year-old son, and who didn't get me sober, who I actually would drive down the way with him in Kensington Avenue, where I actually had a drug dealer yell at me and tell me to get lost because I had a baby in the back seat. And and it just didn't matter to me. What mattered to me was getting what I needed to live. And so what ended up happening was, so me and his mother were using together for years, and I ended up getting booked, and I ended up going to State Road, and there she is with a 2.5-year-old child with a serious dope. With a dope habit. And it's kind of funny because like a week before I ended up getting booked, I was going down the way on my own and picking up bundles and bringing it back to her. And for whatever reason, she came with me, and I would meet this guy off the block. So we would meet him off the block because it was hot at the time. And I introduced him to a drug dealer, and he went by the name of G. Well, it's kind of funny how like, so with me being in State Road in the House of Corrections for 3.5 months, I really wasn't sure when I was getting out, but I ended up getting court papers sent to my jail cell saying that I had lost custody of my son and that Catherine was with a suspicious character, Augusto Gustav. I still remember the name. It's like the craziest thing. And I put that together, Augusto Gustav, that was G. So this guy was now pimping my girlfriend out, the mother of my son, out on Kensington Avenue. So when I got out of jail March, April, May, June, I got out in June. The end of June I got out. And I got released at like 1 in the morning, 2 in the morning, something like that. And the only person that really would talk to me at this point was my dad and my mom. And my mom was sick at the time, but my dad came to get me. And it's kind of funny. So where it all circles with me walking over my mother and pissing in her face was, it's coming towards the end of, so the first few weeks when I was away, my mom lost her leg from smoking. So she was waiting for a prosthetic leg. But when I got home, I wanted to find my son's mother, and I went down there several times, couldn't find her, and I eventually found her underneath the tracks. They're gone now, but there was a bridge where people would go and shoot their dope and smoke their crack, whatever it is that they were doing. And I found her, and she refused to. It was like out of a movie. Like I saw her from a distance. She had lost tons of weight, and she was wiping herself with a red rag, her leg. And I was like, Kate. And she wouldn't go with me. And then I ended up walking with her, and the guy that I introduced her to was speaking Spanish and basically telling me to get away from her. And I remember I dropped some money off. She was living out of a car that we had. I think it was off of Rose Hill, man. I think it was off of Rose Hill. I'm not too sure, but I would like leave $100 on the tire and I ended up relapsing again. So my heroin habit went straight up to where it was before I went to jail. And so during this time, I was living at my dad's. I wasn't really doing much. I was trying to figure out I lost everything. Everything I owned was in the storage, by the way, before I went into jail because we were trying to move. So everything, when I got out of jail, I lost custody of my son. She was prostituting herself, living on the streets. All my possessions that I ever owned growing up, everything was gone because she didn't pay the storage unit, and it was gone. It was gone.
And you're at your dad's.
And now, yeah, I'm at my dad's.
So let me interject something here, because like, and we're gonna go like I guess to your mom's story right after this, but like your dad, like I know at rehab when you were there and like you had 13th rehab, and he'd give you chance after chance, right? This guy after the things you did, right? And like I think that's how Creator is with us, right? He lays down rules, he lays down laws, right? And he says, these are the consequences, like your dad said over and over. When you were the prodigal son, man, you had everything, right? He wanted to give you everything, the business and everything. And like, you went out, you spent it all, and you were down, like ready to eat the food that the pigs were getting, you know what I mean? And like, and when you came home, which you have finally done, and now you work at the business, like he was just like, put the coat on him, kill the freaking fatted calf, let's have a party. And like, I believe that because we're created in the image, right?
Right.
And we treat our children that way. And I believe that we're all going to be forgiven if we come back like you came back.
Right.
But I think that's like the way your dad is with you is the way our Father is with us.
Where our Creator is.
And apparently he's got a sweet spot. Apparently he really likes the wild ones when they come back. Because the good son was like, well, where's look, I'm not trying to get biblical, but the good son's like, where's my party? He's like,
sure.
No, the party.
And that kind of happened like with my brother and I's relationship. There's pieces of that I'm not going to be able to get into because of the time. But, I'm still mending my relationship with my brother because my brother's a great guy. And I took a lot of time from the family, and he has his own issues. But all the attention was on me, right? And that's what we do. We're selfish and self-centered to the core, man. And up until recently, I finally have understood, like, man, I put this guy through so much pain, right? But I got an older brother who, like, basically I'm just starting to talk to. It's been 10 years. I barely have never really spoken to him. And he's in the family business too. He's just finally accepting me.
So it's just like that story.
Right.
That brother wasn't real happy about the wayward brother coming back. Yeah.
No doubt. So just to kind of keep it going. So I ended up relapsing. I found her. She wouldn't come. And my mother fell, broke her hip, and she went to the hospital really quick. She had surgery. She never came out of the surgery. She was on a respirator. And I was so right before this, I was going to a class to get my son back on Arch Street, and it was from 6 to 8, and I left it was August 12th. It's my sister's birthday. My court date, no, it was August 11th. Court date, it was August 12th. My court date was the 13th. So I left, went and got some dope, ended up getting arrested again. My court date was 9 o'clock the next morning. My dad was waiting for me. I never came home because I was in jail. I thought I was going to go back to State Road, but I got ROR'd. I was so dope sick. I went down there. It was in the 25th district. I went down the way, and I got one bag of free sample because they gave out samples. And I made my way back into Jersey. And when I walked in the door, I actually snuck up to the second story and snuck in, told him I was there, and he thought I was crazy. He was like, I thought you were dead in the dumpster, right? So, and I missed the court date to get my son back. So he was like, get your shit. We're going to go visit your mom. And this is where it all comes into play. Like, I ended up stealing another check. Before we left, we were going down to Jefferson Hospital in Center City. my plan was to leave, go take a cigarette break, go to PNC Bank, take out $250, get on the L, go do what I need to do, come back. And I shit my pants on the way to walk into PNC Bank. I get into the PNC Bank, and there's a partition that I thought was nailed down, but it wasn't. I leaned on it, knocked it over. Everyone's looking at me. I was dope sick. And when I went to go try to cash the check, she called my dad, who was up in the room with my mom, who was now on the respirator from surgery. So I ended up walking back there. I was so dope sick. I was like, how am I going to go on with this day? And my dad left the room because he was so mad at me. And what I did was I cut my mom's fentanyl drip and poured it into a urine container and went down to the pharmacy at Jefferson Hospital, told him I was a diabetic and I needed a needle to get well. I never saw my mom alive because right after that, my dad called me with a needle in my arm later that day. And I got sent off to my dad said, this is it. I'm going to send you one last place. I've been from the ritzy places to the state places, all in between. I've been to them all. I've been to Keystone. 3 times. I've been to Living Green. I've been to Malvern. I've been to them all. Clearbrook. So at that moment, it was the 13th. I went on the 15th. And that was my sobriety date from heroin. Well, really the 13th, but that's what I consider my sobriety date from heroin. I have not touched a needle or opiate since then. Unfortunately, my mom died with me 6 months clean. I stayed sober through that. My mom never saw me get clean. I believe that, but knowing what I know now and what my mom would do, she would hide a lot of things that perpetuated and allowed me to continue my heroin use by allowing me to steal checks. And, I believe that God took my mom away to give me feet, right? To give me life. Because without her dying, I always knew that I could steal checks and get away with it. When really I should be in federal prison for the amount of money I'd stolen from them. Yeah. So really quick, I got a second life, really, with like 3 years clean. I got married.
So that was our rehab was the one that clicked. It clicked. And then, then you were 3 years clean after that, which is pretty fucking good.
In that time, I got married to a normal woman who was an OR nurse at University of Penn. And I was getting back involved with the family business. And, when I moved back, I was living up in Reading where the facility was. But when I came home, I stopped going to meetings. I stayed clean off the chair meetings, giving the best pep talks. I can give the best pep talks. But I never worked the steps. For a guy like me, I got to work the steps as I outlined and have God in my life. If I don't have God in my life, I am like dead in the water, man. I need to connect with God every day. Do I do a good job of it right now? I do a decent job. Can I be better at it? There's no doubt. But I'm trying to connect with people in the program like I never really have. I know tons of people in Philadelphia recovery, and I got a really good sponsor right now who's got 31 years clean, and really sets me straight when I need to be set straight. But really quick, just to I suffered from a meth relapse. I ended up getting divorced over it. I ended up having Homeland Security after me because when I got sober, I took up photography, and I had taken that photography to a level of meth that really got the antennas up of Homeland Security because it was right around the Las Vegas shooting, and Philadelphia was having a sheriff's convention. But what I was doing was I was going on top of all the buildings in Center City and taking photos. And I was carrying around a crowbar and wire cutters, and I was getting on top of every single building in Center City, which I can say I've been on top of every single one. And they put a full court press on me and put me on Channel 6, Channel 29, Philly.com. And I basically had them come into my house. And actually, it was kind of funny. I had this huge rock of meth when they came in, it was underneath a piece of paper, and they never saw it. But nonetheless, that was
Look, I saw video of that. You sent me, man. Like, yo, you don't do anything half-assed, dude. And those pictures were actually pretty good. And dude, that shit, you're like kind of a face of this family business a little bit, a lot. And your father still welcomes you.
Still,
home,
man. Still, and it's kind of great, man, because like today I found my niche. I love shooting underground graffiti artists. I've connected in that community. Who?
But you do great art yourself. I'm gonna put some of it up right here.
Yeah.
You do great art. Like,
yeah,
you do great art, not just painting, not just the photos.
Yeah, I love to paint, and it really gives me an opportunity to express myself, and that's what my art is.
Nah, you're talented, man. And the acting, like when we were at rehab, we would goof on the new guys that would come in. You could cry on Will, dude. You are a good actor.
I appreciate that, man.
You have a home, you have a girlfriend.
I do. I have a home now. I have a beautiful home. I got a girlfriend. I got a dog, and I'm finally.
I'll say you do.
I'm finally, and it's kind of funny because like my father's going through some hard times right now, and like it's kind of coming in full circle where like I'm being there for him. You know, I'm getting the opportunity. God's given me the opportunity to be there for him, and he's really struggling with some things. So if I just continue on this path where I stay connected to God, connect with people in recovery, go to meetings, and follow through with doing the program as it's outlined, I know that I can have a decent life. You know, I'm okay with me today. You know, I have a lot of quirks. I'm a little weird. You know, but I don't reject myself in any way. You know, I just, like I said, I'm bipolar, so there's like a lot of things that maybe come across to the average person as a little weird, not, but like I embrace those things because those are the things that give me character. So if anyone's ever suffering or not sure of themselves, and you know, just love yourself, man. Embrace who you are, and because we give the world the color. You know what I'm saying? Without people like us, man, the world would be dull.
Nah, absolutely. Yeah. Yo, it is all about connection. I mean, God, yes, number one, but people, you know, people. Like that clicked with me. A few things clicked at rehab, and one, that the root of my whole thing in the beginning was lack of connection with just people. Yeah. And then I was like, you know what? It's gonna be uncomfortable. It's gonna be like work for you, but make friends and have connections with people. And it got easier and easier. It gets easier. It's work for us, man. It is work. It is work, but it's like necessary.
It is definitely necessity, because like when I'm connected with people, I feel like I'm engaged in life. You know what I mean? And I feel like there's a purpose. But when I'm like not engaging and I'm isolating and doing all the things that really the real me wants to, like kind of like it's not the real me, but it's kind of like a default me wants to do is like isolate and do my own thing. But like I know when I'm doing that for a period of time, that's not good for me, man, because my natural gift is connecting with people and you know,
it is. You're like incredibly personable, and like anybody who knows you, you're really genuine. You're funny. You're just full of love and shit. Like you put these videos up of the guy, I don't know, the dude who works in the parking lot, and like
Siddharth.
Yeah, you're just all hugging him, and you're like, I love you, and like I know it's easy. It's easy with that dude, right? Like it's easy with but. No, man. You are like ultimately personable and like it's good. Just embrace it.
I love you, man.
Yeah. All right. Look, dope stories. That was a killer dope story with a beautiful ending. Thank you, man.
And hopefully it continues that way, man. I'll keep you posted. I
love you. You always call me.
Yeah.
All right.
Man. Yo, God bless everyone, man.